If I'm honest, like I think there's a lot of corporate stuff, that the tick box stuff, and you've got people ticking boxes like, I don't actually understand this.
Yeah. Levels into a mindset where it's the bottom line that we see, and as long as the product is a product, a quality product in a commoditized market, is to call it an own brand.
Right.
When everybody, if you look...
I think it's legislation. I think it has to come right from the top down, so that
this is where we see that there has to be some time allocated to allowing people to do their jobs.
yeah.
At Metpro Group, we've been really lucky this year to have some fantastic guests join us as part of our Metpro Insights podcast. We've covered topics such as carbon neutrality, education, innovation, product quality, the British standards, and the ever-present elephant in the room, mental health. We've still got some excellent conversations to come in 2024, but we want to take this opportunity to thank our guests so far this year: Andrew Duffen, Tony Howard, Theo Webster, Fleming Saheed, Ian Wright, Kate Adamczyk, and Darren Staniforth. Thank you all of you for coming in, sitting down with us and being open and honest, and here are some of the best bits of 2024 so far. We hope you enjoy.
Next question. So what about innovation?
Okay, so we do some of your products, which I don't mind saying, Conlook.
Yeah.
We've got that in our new workshop. Again, threadless conduit.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant piece of equipment there.
Thank you.
On that one, you've got the rapid saddles.
Yep.
So that right as well.
Yep.
Again, great for our workshop because we're not losing so many screws
Yep.
from the students as well, and quicker. And I like how you can then put it on the wall, and then you can drop the hangers down, and then you can drop your conduit on, hang your conduit on, and then drop it on. So we definitely want those sort of new products, because I'm not on the shop floor no more. I'm not in industry fitting those products.
Yeah.
So I need the manufacturers of those products to get them into the college, so they can demonstrate them to the electricians that I'm hopefully training. Because the worst case scenario would be someone going, well, we don't use that on site, we use this, and I don't know that product.
See, that's quite interesting to me, because the biggest kickback we've had, certainly on products like Conlock, is that you're removing the skill from the job.
Yes, threading, but you still got to bend it. You still got to, that's the skill in there. I'm not, before I get any hate on saying threading's not a skill. It is a skill, of course it is on there. But we'll go back to costs, and obviously installers need to install their equipment, efficiently and quickly.
Yeah.
So if there's a product there that speeds that process up, then I'm all for it.
Okay.
No, I'm not against it. I still going to teach my students how to put a thread on conduit.
Yeah.
I don't want that to ever change.
No.
But I still want to show them Conlock as well. To show the pros, and it's up to them to make a decision.
And the reality is, if you're in a real world situation, you might be coming across an already installed threaded system.
Exactly.
And you've got to adapt it.
You've got to add to it. You can't add Conlock to it.
Yeah.
In a way. Do you know what I mean? You've got to adapt it.
So you're all for innovation then?
Yeah, perfect. I love new products, new materials, new tools. Please.
Kid in the sweet shop.
Please send them my way, because I love just demonstrating to the learners, and I love getting the manufacturers to come and show their products to the learners, because they're going to be using them. Hopefully I'm not going to be using them in the industry no more. Hopefully I'm just teaching.
Well, we were saying before with me about how, like, we're both sat here with a pen and paper.
Yeah, I've never thought that.
No, and Tom, who's sitting behind the camera, is going to hate me for saying this, but he all his to-do lists are on computer.
Yeah.
So it's, and I appreciate what people are saying about you're taking the skill out of the job, because arguably with what I've just said there about pen and paper, you're losing the writing ability.
Yeah.
But is that just, it's okay, it might be a bit sad, but is that just natural progression?
I think we might be pen and paper, yes.
Because we're not the most innovative of industries, I don't think.
No, circuits, how they're wired, generally never change.
Yeah.
How we install our cables won't change dramatically. Realistically, Conlock has a little bit, but trunking, unless you could, if you go to trunking, I don't think you can join two trunking without bolting it together.
Not that I know of.
I know of just yet. You know.
Apologies to any manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. If they are, send them my way for it. But generally, obviously, the quicker installs, and that's what the UPS is. Quicker installs is there on there. Well, yeah, I think with IT and digital skills, I think that's a natural progression for students. Right. I don't see it as a bad thing. I still think pen and paper is still key. A lot of times you might do a material list on site using pen and paper.
Yeah.
You might then transfer it onto an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Or whatever apps. Lots of apps you can buy now to do it all for you as well. Again, pricing, you might do that on pen and paper and then send a quote digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're still needed.
Or the service offering end. What have you seen? What have been the big advantages or drawbacks? Would you say
for the customer side?
Yeah. So the most people when they call an electrician, they're expecting at some point. Normally late is obviously the joke in it, and you get a van will turn up, then you'll turn up on your bike.
Yeah.
Before we're talking, you said on time.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that the biggest difference that you're getting places on time?
Well, yeah, your delays are just cut right out.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have a delay of something, but it's nothing compared to like normal city traffic. So the customer gets their person on time. If we need to go and get something, it's not right, we'll be back in 2 hours. We'll use a local. It might be a little while, but it's not that kind of like we're going to go and disappear and come back.
Yeah.
So the jobs are just generally more efficient.
Yeah.
So for the customer, they just get quite an efficient service.
Okay.
But also they love what we're doing. I mean, a lot of the bookings that we get are because they've heard of us and they love the idea.
Okay. So do you think that the customer end then people are more aware of the climate crisis? I don't really know the correct terminology anymore, but
I think look, I'm in London.
Decisions?
Yeah, look, I'm in London, and it's like it is quite a it should be a concern for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think simply put, it's like there wasn't an option for them to have that before. Now there's an option.
Right.
So now we're that option where they've got like, okay, well I didn't have an electrician who's low carbon, but now I do, so I will choose that.
Okay.
Because I think generally people want to make the right decisions. It's just that the offer has to be there for them.
I think, to be honest with you guys, I think we've covered quite a lot. And I'm conscious of time. I mean, we've been going for over an hour now. I think by quite a bit. And so the last thing we want to do is overload people with information. But I think if we start to bring this to its conclusion, I mean, this all started with, I would suggest probably a likely offhanded comment that you came out with.
Quite
Theo.
broad.
But there's definitely, it's come from a place of truth. And you've been able to elaborate on that and put your points across to Tony. And Tony's very gracious.
He'll take that into his retirement.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. But I think having sat here now across the table from Tony, who's had 56 years of time in wholesaling, have your perceptions perhaps changed or evolved towards the wholesaler?
Yeah, there's a lot of points have been brought up that perhaps I don't see or about, but don't really think about, and it's like I said to you, it's changed my opinion in particular on like the price of things.
Right.
How a lot of people do look at the bottom line, but that bottom line, yes, it might be cheaper, but it's not necessarily, it's the same quality and things like that, And, it will definitely change the way I do things going forward, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And Tony, as we alluded to earlier on, at the point of recording, you're just over a week away from retirement, is it?
Indeed, yes.
Now, not that you're counting the days or anything,
Not
obviously.
okay.
But I think what would be really interesting with someone who's at almost the very end of their career, what advice would you give to the industry moving forward, looking back on the 56 years?
Well, I suppose if advice is the right word, I think opinions, thoughts. If I look at the industry of where it's evolved, it's still fundamentally the same business that I walked into 56 years ago. The products are essentially the same products. Yes, I sold conduit in 1968. Yeah. But it was 12'6"
right
length. Yeah. It wasn't 3.75 meters. Yeah. what's changed the most is what's happened around it. So technology's moved on. It was very much an industry then that recognized the value of the three components.
Right.
So we valued the manufacturer, we valued the wholesaler, and we valued the contractor. And each one acknowledged the problems and the issues that the other one had, because it was very much a people business. Now, without repeating myself, technology has come along and replaced a lot of the interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
People do not talk. People do not communicate. We think in a world of wholesaler and contractor. I prefer Theo and Tony.
Yeah.
And Jake.
Yeah.
I don't think we serve any great purpose when we become the embryonic wholesaler or the embryonic contractor, because it dehumanizes us.
Yeah.
And once we dehumanize anything, we're more prone to make mistakes. So we talked about systems that determine the stock level because we can't capture. But we used to be able to capture when we didn't have any of the technology.
Yeah.
Because we knew the people.
Yeah.
We knew the contractor better. Yeah. Yes, they had more time. And therefore they could spend more time with the wholesaler. And, the times that I walked around a store with the contractor in tow, and he went, I'll have 10 of those and 5 of those and 7 of those, doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
It's we're more security conscious. So my advice would be try to go back to the root, which is the people.
Yeah.
Try to understand that there is always a reason behind the obvious. Yeah. So if somebody doesn't have something that you want, there's a reason why they don't have that.
Right.
Now, it can be communication, it can be by design, it can be through ignorance, and it can be through happenstance, because none of us can control everything. We drive on motorways that get shut, deliveries don't turn up, whatever. I just think that this whole engagement piece that we're going through came through communication, about having a discussion. And for me, the important bit to get across to Theo on behalf of wholesalers in general, but me in particular, is we want to work with you. We want to provide the service you want and you need. There is a danger that we think we know what that is. And the reason that happens is because we don't talk, or you don't tell us. Yeah. And as I've said many times before, when you talk to people about things, there are opportunities to change things. When you don't talk to somebody about it, when you just complain about it, they never got what I want. Okay, well then they never will do, because they don't know what it is that you want.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's try to build a more cohesive system, method to communicate better, because we have all these industry institutions, but they're all very insular. ECA, EDA, BEMA, BASEC, all of these different organisations, contractor organisations, wholesaler organisations, manufacturer organisations. How often do they actually get together collectively to discuss their problems, or do they discuss them all in isolation? And then when they're all in isolation, well, of course, wholesalers will always say, it's the contractor, never know what they want, they're never consistent, and they always moan. The contractors, wholesalers, they're useless. They never have what you want. They can never deliver it on time. They never deliver it in the right way. Wholesalers to suppliers, well, they're rubbish, aren't they? They supply anybody. They tell us they can do this, and then they can't, or they tell us that, but we never get together. We never have that collective, so we can say, well, is that actually true? Or is that just a perception of truth? So for me, communicate more, look at the people, not at the institutions.
Brilliant. Okay. And then Theo, coming over to you, for all intents and purposes at the start of your career, what do you want to see more of moving forward?
That's a good question again. Again, more communication, just having the ability to have honest conversations about things and not feel like there's already a predetermined answer behind what's being said. And actually properly discussing things and not being told things. Or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And just maybe, certainly from what we've said, perhaps as a contractor, if you're wanting specific things, just be a bit more clearer about that. And from a wholesaler's point of view, I mean, to be fair, my local wholesalers are quite good. They, like I said, they've got to know what we like. So maybe on a broader spectrum, if that was possible, I know it's difficult because you're talking like a tailored service for each individual contractor, but that's almost what we need in some respect. And that might get easier as time goes by and AI becomes more of a thing. That's going to, have interactive systems where it will become easier to be specific for individual contractors. But so just having that more personal approach like you would have had when you started your career, which I think probably isn't there anymore.
No, it's not. I was going to be flippant and say Rexel haven't managed to use AI to create a version of me yet.
Well, I think from my perspective and the position of manufacturer, and certainly talking on behalf of Metpro, like you say, Tony, communication is a big thing for us. We value it so much. We understand the necessity of emails and other ways of communicating, but what's wrong with picking up a phone? The art of conversation is dying. But luckily, mediums like this, I think, seem to have. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself personally, so there is definitely a place for it. And we've got a number of conversations lined up, but we want to keep having them more and more. We want to be challenged. We want to have a wholesaler come in and tell us where where we're going wrong. Okay, well we'll give you our reasons why, but hopefully we can find an amicable solution forward, so that the entire industry benefits, not just the manufacturer or Jake and the wholesaler or Tony and the contractor or Theo. I think we're all pretty much in alignment, and hopefully we'll not that you'll care, Tony, but hopefully for me and Theo.
I do care.
I know.
I do care.
It's very evident.
Because I care about the contractor, the customer, because ultimately, whether we refer to them as the contractor or the customer, they are a customer.
Absolutely.
And I've always been an avid fan of Walt Disney's statement. The customer might not always be right, but he's always the customer. Yeah. And I've always tried to do my best in my job and the businesses I've worked for to respect the fact that the customer is the customer. That doesn't make dealing with it when he's not right any easier. But Theo's right. We all have pat answers. Oh yeah, some of them annoy me from the day I started in this business to the day I'll leave. I hate deliveries of 7 to 10 days. They're 7 or they're 10. They can't be 7 to 10. Or I'll ring you back in 5 minutes. You cannot guarantee a customer you ring back in 5 minutes. Just tell him I'll ring him back as soon as I can. If somebody says to me I'll ring you back in 5 minutes, at 5 minutes I'm on the phone again. Where are you? So I think it is this personal thing, and I think my views of the future, as long as we don't lose sight of that with AI and everything else, the industry survived. It will continue to survive.
Do you think that as an industry we do enough to call out quite a strong term, so I'll say highlight or raise awareness of inferior or non-conforming product?
I think we try. I think we do try. I think every wholesaler will try to do the right thing, but ultimately, if it's winning a job or not losing a job, the contractor will make the decision.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wholesaler will make the decision on what they supply. I accept that, but I think it's legislation. I think it has to come right from the top down, so that the everything is tighter.
Yeah.
We're too loose in what we allow to come into the country from imports. So there has to be tighter legislation, I think, to give us better control through the whole industry. So no matter what we try to do, there's a requirement, I think, from higher powers to force that through. But do we do enough? We try, but we're not there yet. We're a long way off, because we know there are, I get phone calls all the time from somebody offering me a container of steel conduit.
Wow.
And lighting is a nightmare, all the time. I don't respond, but all the time, and I'm allowed to do that. I could bring a container of stuff in, and as long as I've got the certification and everything, and introduce it into the market, we do that. But I'm sure many of the people in this industry have had the same experience, but we don't do that, and it's not, it has lots of problems there. But that happens all the time.
Wow. Okay. I mean, this is, and I know that I know Tony's off in the States now, enjoying the good life.
Good for him.
There was, absolutely. But there was something that he said in his first conversation with us, which really resonated with me, which was, in his view, we didn't hold ourselves to a high enough standard as an industry.
Yeah.
It was I'll be electrical wholesaler and then move on, or go into manufacturing and move on, and we don't give the weight or the credence to the the products that we're installing. Some of them, with the load bearing stuff, it's so critical. And I'm wondering if there's an element here of you've got that ability to bring in a container of tube, like you just said, for probably a fantastic price. Whether the product lives up to that, question mark. But introducing more regulation, which people tend to get a bit scared of, which I understand, but should we be doing that to elevate ourselves? We're such an integral part of the UK economy.
I think maybe we do underestimate ourselves in the supply chain.
I'd say so.
We are an important, and we have access to many products, and it's our duty of care to make sure we're supplying the right products into the market. So we probably don't hold ourselves up. People have said, "What do you do?" I say, "I work for electrical wholesaler."
Yeah.
And nobody really knows what they do. You're a doctor, you're a nurse.
Yeah.
People know what you do, but from an electrical wholesaler, some people know what that is. But we don't probably appreciate how important we are, and the importance of what we do. Like you say, putting those products into the market. We have a responsibility. So I think you're spot on.
Well, we're literally the backbone of the country.
Yeah.
If you think about it,
Yeah. Look, wherever you're looking at building products or electrical products or plumbing products, we all have a duty of care to make sure that the products we supply into the market are fit for purpose. This, the Grenfell thing and many other instances over the years has been there where it's just scraped in on the standards possibly. I don't know where that sits, but it's just there.
Yeah.
The standards are too wide. They should be
massively.
That's a standard. You've all got to comply to that. Not.
Yeah.
I worked in manufacturing for a few years on the plastics, selling dado and conduit, and the specification for 20mm PVC conduit. You had a huge parameter.
Yeah.
I worked for Univolt, and we were right at they were at the top, as many like Marshalls and everybody else in MK. You're all up there, so it's quality. But you can import some real rubbish, and it's yellow. And it's awful. So even when I was in that short time in the manufacturing world, there's such an array of it ticks the box, but it's not good enough for what you'd want to fit into your house or into your building. So
I know when we were talking beforehand, and I used the word ambiguity, and that's what it feels like. Those those parameters for what's acceptable are so far apart.
Yep.
And even though we've got British standards and they're pretty clear. We're still, we're always having to educate, even on the markings. Because if you're missing, like tube, for example, there's 4 digits as part of the Plus A1 2019 edition to the to the standard, and you've got to have 4 digits on every single length of tube. And if you don't have even one of those 4 digits, it does not comply. And I'm hoping that's bang on correct, because my technical manager will kick the crap out of me afterwards. But it doesn't comply.
Yeah.
And even if you've got 2 products that are exactly the same in composition, in strength, in tensility, if it's missing that one, well then they're not. That one complies and that one doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that concerns me, because we're always trying to operate at that. Like I said to you outside, when products come in and they're not to our standards, at the moment, and not to slander the industry, but they might be to the industry standards at the moment, but they're not to ours, so they go into quarantine. And we don't want yourselves, or certainly the end user, to be the final quality check. And I think it's so difficult, because it needs we almost need like a collective mentality shift, which is quite difficult to encourage.
Yeah, I think that's the going back to what we said earlier, is the education across the industry, that those 4 digits on a piece of steel conduit is as important as the size, and it's a class 4.
Absolutely.
And that if that's not on there, and I touched on it earlier, but I don't know enough to comment with this SCEB, which is skills, knowledge, experience and behaviour, that the EDA did a bit of a forum on. That may change a few things, where the contractors, I believe, are required to make sure that what they're fitting and that the behaviour and everything on site is up to certain standard. And that's what I said earlier, touch base with the guys at the ECA.
Yeah.
They'll tell you more, but I think that'll help educate and have accountability a little bit more. So maybe people will take more notice of those things when they're installing 25mm galv conduit, that go, actually, this hasn't got that 4 digit on. Yeah. And raise somebody's awareness, because that's where the difference can be made from we supplying your products and then they're supplying somebody else's. That's the difference. Yeah. And the contractor will see that. We can't see that. The wholesaler could say it is, but until it's delivered to site, you don't really know. Yeah. So I think what the ECA are doing, and some of the new legislation that will come through will help us. It won't be immediate. It will take time. Mm-hmm. It will certainly help with the bigger premises we were saying earlier, so the more commercial and industrial premises. On the domestic side, I don't think it'll have such an impact. Yeah. Because there's less control over the domestic environment. Mm-hmm. But from the little I understood of that side of what they were saying, that will help. Yeah. But again, it's education from the ECA, the NIC, and from the manufacturers and wholesalers. So it's everybody, and the contractor. A lot of contractors know what they're doing in respect of making sure that the quality of the product's there. And I don't want for anybody to think that they don't. But if they're not educated, how are they supposed to know? Yeah. So if they're going, look, I've been told this is fit for purpose, how are they? They're not an expert in that. That's part of our duty of care, and the manufacturers to make sure we're supplying that. The contractor trusts us to supply a product that is at the right British standards and it's fit for purpose. So they have to trust us. There's a trust element there, and that's the bit that we can let them down with. Is if we don't.
Sorry about that. We're back. Right. Apparently, it was fire alarm testing day, and
I thought I'd said something I shouldn't have said. Then the alarms are going off. So.
Yeah, it's God's censoring. Yeah. So we were talking about trust, which was I found really important, because just to reference Tony again, that was what he saw as missing from the industry. Yeah. So, of course, you were quite right in what you said about if you supply an inferior product to a contractor, then what. Why would they come back to AT&T? Yeah. And I think that's the same. That's the same for us as well. If we supply you with inferior, non-compliant, or issue riddled products, why would you want to work with Metpro ever again? Yeah,
I think tongue in cheek. We want an easy life.
Yeah.
And if you're supplying products that are creating you problems all the time, you have a harder life. So why would you want to do that? Not just for me as a wholesaler, but for the contractor, the headache that they would have is just not worth the hassle. So that trust element right through, and I'm not on the sales side. So Adrian, John, Jamie, and all the sales team, their relationships are built on trust.
Yeah.
With most of their customers, and they trust us to supply the products, and the guys trust me to make sure I'm delivering that to them, so they can sell that to the customers. So, this whole tripartite, if you like, so manufacturer, wholesaler, and contractor is key, and the contractor supplier relationship is key as well. That's a trust thing. So we do a lot of events where suppliers attend and meet our customers, so that if they have a problem, they can ask a few questions. Larry's coming in something on Tuesday, and then he'll do our golf day, and he gets to meet our customers as well, because that whole supply chain is important. So trust is so important, that I know that if I'm buying a product from yourselves, unless it's an exception, it's a bad batch and it's just slipped through, it's not going to hit my desk. There's something. It's always something. I'm not blind to that, but you're minimising the risk to the end client, to the contractor, and also that hassle. I always say to a supplier, if a problem's hit my desk, you're a good supplier.
Yeah.
The suppliers that constantly hit my desk because of quality issues, I'll reevaluate that, and then okay guys, what we're doing here, we're going through that. This is creating us a problem with our contractors, and the feedback from the contractor to our internal team, then to me, they'll say that we've got a problem with PVC tape,
right,
for example, or a cable tie, whatever that be. I'll talk to the manufacturer and find out. It could be they've had a bad batch. It could be they've changed something and not supplied information back to us. And then I'll evaluate what we do on that product, not necessarily the supply, but the product, because it's important we're giving the end contractor the right quality product. Because even down a roll of tape, that can create a bit of an hassle for a contractor when he's trying to open it. It's a cold morning. Yeah. Simple things that I don't necessarily see, but the feedback comes to me. So we want to be supplying the end user with products that are good, and they're trusting us to do that.
Okay, Adamczyk, thanks for coming out to see us. Really appreciate taking the time.
No problem. Really happy to be here.
Good. Well, a difficult subject, so straight into it.
Yeah.
How many people die by suicide in construction each year?
So we don't have an exact number, but what we do know is that suicide is the biggest cause of death for men under 35. We know that 4 out of 5 suicides are done by men. And if you work in the construction industry, in 2020, the research showed that you are 3.7 times more likely to die by suicide. So it's a huge thing in the construction and in our industry.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think just specifically in construction, what do you think are the main causes, and the numbers that you see at the EIC? Mm-hmm. How likely do you think those numbers are to rise?
So I guess two questions there, but I think some of the causes around it is obviously, particularly in the electrical industry, it's a very male-dominated industry. Yeah. I think it's something around 80-85% of our industry is male, and as you go more senior, that increases. Mm-hmm. And we know that suicide affects men more than it does women. So I think that's an element. It's a very high-pressured environment, our industry. There's long hours, there's tight contracts for people to do, there's a lot of time away from home and from loved ones, and there is that pressure either of managing budgets or running your own business, so it's kind of all on you. So there's reasons behind it, and also as an industry we're not great about talking about these kind of things. So there'll be people suffering in silence, not feeling able to talk about these things. And do we see it rising? I mean, I can't give you, a yes or no, but I think unless we do address some of the mental health issues that we're seeing in our industry, then yes, it will continue to be an issue, and the likelihood is that death by suicide will rise.
Yeah, it's not good at all. I mean, it seems to be, I know we're in Mental Health Month now.
Yes.
Which is obviously a good thing, but it's a shame that we need a dedicated month. And I know what we were talking before, and there's undoubtedly going to be people that when they're broached with this or approached with this subject or exposed to this subject, there might be that inclination to not treat it with the level of I'll say, you know, respect or severity or seriousness that perhaps it deserves. And I know that there's always going to be people that take advantage of any situation.
Yes.
But really, from what we were talking about beforehand, and I think we can probably all attest to it, it's, you know, in terms of trying to find a solution, is the first, I say, quick win. But is it just knowing that within our industry and the business, the company that you work for, you can have a conversation?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think there's a lot that we can do as an industry to help kind of mental health and to raise the awareness of it and make people feel more comfortable. I mean, you know, there is a lot of people that don't feel comfortable disclosing to their employer that they have got mental health challenges, and that's just a fact. And I think as an industry, we need to create more of those safe spaces. You know, it needs to be a conversation that's not shied away from. And I think a lot of the times people maybe do shy away from it because they don't know what to say or they don't know how to handle it, which is perfectly okay. That's what we're there for, the charity. You know, even if people in our industry are just telling others that we exist, you know, just checking in. If you see something that maybe someone's a bit off or they might be struggling a bit, if the only thing you do is tell them about the EIC, that's a step forward. But you know, businesses and employers in our industry have to start taking mental health seriously. And you know, we've definitely seen a shift in the last 12 to 18 months around that, and companies are really taking it seriously. You know, things like they've got you know, wellbeing programs, and they've got people in the business that people can go to and talk to. So there's definitely been a change, and we're going in the right direction. But we need to do more, and we just need to create those safe environments and take it seriously. Okay.
And where do you think, because again, like as you've said, our industry is very male dominated, and certainly even more so as you get as you get into the old guard, if you like. How much of this can we put into a, you know, just, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and away you go? And I know that I personally think there's an element to that in there. And I'm not speaking on behalf of Metpro, and I'm speaking for myself. I do think there's a societal push to be a victim, which I don't think helps people, because I do believe that people start to go on that downward spiral almost because that's the trendy thing to do. And I don't like that. But I also, at the same time, having experienced some stuff myself with mental health, that, you know, you do need to reach out and have the conversation. So how can we, I mean, in terms of demographics within construction, is it the younger males that are suffering the most?
So we've definitely seen an increase in kind of our young people in the industry and apprentices coming for us for help. And suffering from that. And I think, you know, that's an element of the world that we live in now, and we've all gone through the COVID pandemic and the cost of living crisis, and that hits, you know, particularly the cost of living crisis hits our younger people and apprentices more so. They're the lowest paid people, right? So we've definitely seen an increase in that. But also, we see a lot come through from people that have retired. So, you know that in our industry, it's kind of like once you're in, you're in. You know, if you stay for 2 years, then you're in. That's it.
It's true.
So there's a lot of people that have worked in the industry for, you know, over 30 years, and it is long hours and it is away from home, etc. And then all of a sudden they're retired, and it's like, oh, what do I do now, right? And I think in some ways it can be more challenging for that demographic, because they are a bit from the old guard, and you know, and it is very much just pull your socks up and get on with it, right? And don't talk about mental health, or, you know, don't show vulnerability, etc. So I think there's kind of two elements. Of course, there's all the in between. And as you said, yes, I appreciate what you're saying about kind of sometimes there's this element of maybe taking advantage of what's happening in the world now, but we still need to take it seriously.
100%.
And, and I think it is just about that reaching out. And for different people, it will be different ways of doing that. And it will be, some people might feel comfortable talking to their family or friends about these things. Some people might feel comfortable talking to colleagues, but a lot of people won't, right? And you need that independent thing. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone that doesn't know you, right? And doesn't know anything about you, to give you that neutral opinion, if you like. I think we'll say it a lot throughout this, but it's about talking and it's about reaching out, and particularly on the demographic of like the young people. We know that in our industry there's a huge problem attracting people into this industry. It's not seen as sexy or glamorous or anything like that. There's a huge problem. So not only younger people, but more diversity and more women into the industry and all of those things. And unless we catch up with the rest of the world from a mental health perspective, yes, we're a slightly old-fashioned industry, but unless we catch up with them, we're never going to attract and nurture and keep those people. And we're always going to have these challenges around mental health.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think out in the wider context outside of just construction, when you see how much things like social media dominate everyday life now, my outlook isn't great on mental health. I do see it just continually getting worse. So I think the more that we can do now and have just really blunt, honest, open conversations, it's only going to have a positive impact. I want to come back to the golden thread. Now, it wasn't something I had on the list, but it's something that I've heard, and admittedly, I don't feel like there's been a massive engagement with it, and I wonder if that's, and I think you touched on it, there's a lot of work that you need to. Now, we've done a significant amount of work on our product data, and we've worked to get that into a space where it's always been pretty clean, but we've got a dedicated PIM. We're ready for ETIM. We've got our GS1 codes and all the TSI code and everything else going on. But do you think that's what's holding people back from engaging with this stuff?
I think when the golden thread was discussed, it's a great idea. Then you've got to come up with a plan how you can actually implement this. This is the
amount of people you've got to get on board.
This is the big thing. This is the really big. Look, something's got to be done. There were quite clearly some failings that the Hackett report identified, and hopefully this is going to stop that happening ever again, that horrific incident or anything like it happening ever again. So it's got to work, really. How it's going to work, I still don't think we know as an industry. We've got an idea of how it works, and as you just mentioned there, all the data's key for all of this stuff. It's really key, but there's nothing really stopping someone putting in wrong data to skew the figures or whatever, apart from a truly independent third-party accredited scheme. And
the CCPI started doing that now, haven't they?
Yeah. So again, with your ISO, whatever ISO you are, 14,000 or whatever. So any of those, they're third-party accredited. You've got someone truly independent coming round and reviewing what you do to allow you to then say we are ISO whatever. That's great. That's a benchmark. That's really good. That's going to get you a hell of a lot of the way to where you need to be. The reason I think it hasn't really got momentum yet is, I think if you look at when it was launched, we then had Brexit, the pandemic. I know we keep talking about it, but it just happened. You have to be a realist.
This is the fallout from it.
It did happen. Now let's get back on track and let's make it happen again. And I think we will. It definitely. I was quite pleased to see it still hang around, and off the back of that, as you know, with Brexit, we then have to mark everything UKAS now, and instead of just the normal CA mark. So
what happened with was that UKAS or UKCA?
CA, yeah.
So what? Because because we were doing. I mean, admittedly, it wasn't a lot of our products that were impacted, but we heard about it and we just went and got on with it and did it. Now we appreciate that wasn't as easy for a lot of people to do. And the capability or the infrastructure wasn't there to support it within the timelines. But then it just stopped.
Yeah, I mean, so before that it was CE, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was all CE. And actually, CE, when there were some wrongdoings in some projects, when the investigation happened into the product to have a look where are the failings, CE actually wasn't for a compliance for Europe, so certification of Europe. Everyone believed it was. It was actually there was Chinese parts of Chinese industry that were marking things up CE, and when they were challenged to say what does that mark stand for, they said, oh, it stands for Chinese export. And they said, no, it doesn't. It stands for certification of Europe. And they said, no, not in China it doesn't. But that's what we thought we were buying. We thought we were buying something that complies, and they're saying, oh, no, that's sorry. You've misunderstood. It's your fault. You've misunderstood what you brought.
Wow.
And they just shut up shop. So, all of a sudden that created a problem.
Wow.
How much faith now have you got in that CE
Yeah,
mark?
yeah.
So when we looked to come out of Europe, one of the things was they said you've got to have something in place that's going to take over from that.
Okay.
And that's where that UK. I mean, if you look through the legislation, it was still allowing the CE mark to be used.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
However,
Yeah.
people, I think it was almost very typically British. If you'd all like to move over, please, to start using the UK version of it, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, and we'll give you 6 years.
Yeah. So again, this is where that golden thread could really work. And if it was just to say that as of this date, draw a line in the sand, we're only going to accept this after that date.
Right.
I think it would just really help industry out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, like I say, I'm aware of it, and it's been mentioned in a few. It's certainly been part of EDA discussions.
Yeah.
And this is no slight on anybody. Like you say, we've had Brexit, COVID, bloody, Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Suez Canal. Now we've got an election potentially coming up, and the cost of living crisis. It's just there's always something that keeps us in stasis, I think.
Yeah, and for the world just keeps on turning, though, doesn't it? We have to remember that, and no matter what gets thrown up, we just have to accept that this nowadays is business as usual.
Yeah,
and just get on with it.
Yeah, just get on with it.
Because if we don't, someone else will.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. I think that's what it's going to take, really, isn't it? Like anything, you need those pioneers of industry and then everybody tends to come along with you.
Absolutely, yeah.